Listening for the sound in our ears. That's it. I hear the sound in our ears. That means as I look to Jace for the thumbs to go up, we are live. Dr Matt Jenkins, hi.
Hey Pat, how you
Thanks
doing?
for coming in.
No worries, man.
We were just talking, and we might just finish this conversation. Jace was involved as well about concerts that people would be surprised you might have been to. Jace, you had a few good ones. What were your ones?
I managed to get free tickets to I was going to say Hoobastank, but they're probably just a bit. What did I say? Nickelback. That's it.
You have to
Nickelback.
say free tickets because who would ever pay for tickets to Nickelback?
Yeah, and we sat at the back and laughed. But also got the Who. I think that's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
It's a good one.
Some kudos for that,
Rage Against the Machine. Only a few years ago back at
that was a big day out. Saw that. I was
and,
my
the
one.
rest of them are pretty standard. I've seen the Foo Fighters many times, and Muse, and all the other, and Coldplay, and all that sort of jazz. But yeah, Rage Against the Machine and the Who are my calling card concerts. That
So my big one's Rammstein. That's even though it was a big day out one, so that means that another 60,000 people probably saw them as well from New Zealand. But still, Rammstein's a pretty rare one. I saw Michael Jackson at back in the day. Yeah,
Where was that?
That would be good.
There's Western Springs in Auckland. It's funny. It's like I went to Michael Jackson because I thought about my parents, and I thought about my parents in the 60s if they could have seen the Beatles, and they didn't. To that day they would have been. I could have seen the Beatles and I didn't. So I mean, I liked Michael Jackson, especially in the 80s. He was cool. I was a fan. As a kid. But it really was. This is a. Yeah, you can't. Well, how can you miss it? This is like it's the Beatles,
Black and
it's
White
Elvis.
was my first tape, man. Black and White was my first tape.
Tapes. I remember tapes.
So there was if you could see Elvis, wouldn't you have wanted to see him? These things, and Michael Jackson is in that vein. I mean, I don't know if there's anyone today who's like that. I guess everyone needs to see U2 at some stage. They're probably.
Have you seen U2?
Yeah.
Good live?
Yeah. Well, you're from the UK. I always think about people in the UK. Everyone must have been to the O2 at some stage.
Yeah,
or Wembley and seen something.
I brought up, I guess, in the 90s, so I had a lot of Britpop stuff, and it was mainly Oasis.
Oasis.
Come into the mic a little bit there, bro.
Yeah. So I remember going to see them at Wembley, for example.
Just drag the mic towards your face. There you go.
Is that better?
That is beautiful.
Cool. Oasis is a big one. The weirdest one I've been to, I think, was actually here in Dunedin. That was Robbie Williams. And that's only because I got free tickets, like Jason.
You got to put that disclaimer in, eh?
Yeah, you got to, man. Turns out that one of my friends from school, his cousin, was in the band with Rob Williams.
Oh, wow.
And he didn't know anyone in Dunedin. He had these comp tickets, so he offered us these tickets. And I was like, yeah, well, it's not really my thing, but I'll go.
Yeah.
And I was actually, I got to say, I was blown away by it. The entertainment value, he knew what he was doing. And even though I was reluctant to get involved, like in terms of being entertained, he threw us all away, man. It was really
Come on, tell us which songs you sang along to.
All of them. That's the thing, is that they're all catchy and
he's
they're
easy
pop
to
hits.
dance to, yeah.
I saw Robbie Williams in Auckland when I was working for More FM. He came to New Zealand and his first ever concert here was a private screening to like 500 people.
Oh, yeah.
And I went to that. And there was this big hubbub at that time. He'd just started to get a tattoo on his upper arm.
Yeah.
And it was a Māori tattoo.
The Māori tattoo, yeah.
I sat next to the guy in the thing who did the tattoo, so I got the whole story. It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool because there was only 500 of us. And so it was like quite...
Like intimate.
Yeah. Well, ish, it's not like 20, but Anyway, so that's we talk about concerts. I guess that's not why you're here, but that's the conversation flows.
Yeah, I'm into music, so yeah, it's good.
Now, you are someone who I found in the ODT the other day. Are someone who has a PhD. Did you just graduate with the PhD? Did you just finish the PhD?
Oh, it's been over a year now. So I finished it in mid 2017. So it's been 18 months
at Otago.
Yeah.
And the thing that fascinates me is it's in motivation and behavioural change.
Yeah,
Is
specifically.
that a fair synopsis?
Specifically for exercise, physical activity.
Yeah.
I like to use the term physical activity as opposed to exercise. I think exercise has these connotations about, going to a gym and working out, but physical activity means all these different things that you can do, go outside, going for a walk and things like that. But yeah, that's what my PhD was in, motivation, and also looking at mindfulness as well. I'm not sure if that came across in the article, but it was looking at the effect of mindfulness on motivation.
So when I think about mindfulness, I think about an app with nice music and words.
It's weird, isn't it, that we've taken to using apps to create mindfulness where it's probably smartphones that are taking quite a lot of mindfulness from us in the first place.
There is a juxtaposition there indeed.
There is.
Yeah.
But they are useful. I used the app Headspace, for example, in my research, and it's really useful it makes it accessible, it makes these things accessible. But yeah, I mean, talking about mindfulness, how do you define mindfulness? How do you think you define it?
Well, I mean, I haven't really been involved with it, but I know that my kids for a long time, they were having trouble getting to sleep at night.
Yeah.
And so we found these mindfulness apps, and it was, it's a bubble, blow the bubble away. And it was like very nice.
Yeah,
It's like a meditation almost, I would think of mindfulness.
That's essentially what it is. I mean, meditation's a route to mindfulness, and there's lots of different ways you can do it. And like I said, whenever I've talked about it to guys, I remember I did a focus group a couple of years ago, and it was to a room of sort of rugby fan big guys.
Yep.
And I remember bringing up the idea of mindfulness with these guys, and there seems to be a certain stigma attached to it. Like you think that you're going to be sitting in a lotus position with incense burning, like sort of doing that whole thing. But for me, it's not. For some people, it is.
Yeah.
But for me, it's just about trying to be in touch with what you're thinking, what you're feeling at that time. So you don't have to be.
I associate mindfulness with relaxation, meditation, maybe introspection.
Yeah.
And like peace and quiet. So not that you've put me on the spot, but never having spoken that out before, they're words like because I'm thinking about the iPad playing and what the kids are listening to when they're doing it. Those are the words that come to mind.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that because for me, obviously, I had to research it for a PhD, right? So I had to define what mindfulness was, and I think it took me about 6 months just to get to a clear definition, because you look at all these research articles and the word mindfulness means so many different things to different people.
Right.
And everyone can take it on and use it in their own way. It's fine. But to come up with an academic definition of mindfulness was an absolute nightmare.
And have you nutshelled that into a few words, or is an academic definition of mindfulness like a 3-page dissertation?
No, I think you can break it down into a couple of sentences. I mean, the key aspect is present moment awareness. Mm-hmm. So it's awareness of thoughts, feelings.
So being in the moment in that time.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. So I think of it as a flexible attention to the present moment. So obviously, if we're walking around in the present moment the whole time, we're probably not going to get much done. But you need to be aware of what's happened in the past, because otherwise we don't learn from our mistakes and all that sort of stuff. You also need to have a flexible attention to the future, because otherwise we're not going to work on our goals, for example, like the long-term stuff. But it's just when people get caught up in future predictions or get caught up in past experiences, rather than actually focusing on the present moment when it's adaptive and when it's useful to them. So it's being able to bring attention when it's useful, when it's adaptive, if that makes sense.
So what's the difference? It sounds like you're talking about living in the now.
Yeah.
Or feeling the now.
Yeah.
So it's interesting because, I mean, I think about, things you get told as a kid, or practices that get put in place. And like one of the sayings that comes to mind about living in the now is, it's a cricket saying, you play each ball on its merits.
Yeah.
So what's the difference between when I say what's the difference, how have we evolved, or how has society changed to this mindfulness living in the now, and perhaps my dad's generation, which are like, just focus on today and is there a difference, or is this just the modern version of play each ball on its merits?
I guess it's the modern version. It seems like we've had to pay more attention to this mindfulness thing because there are so many other distractions out there at the moment. So, we're not evolved, I don't think, to be able to... We can get news from the other side of the world now, and there's just this information overload.
And in a heartbeat.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, I probably look right now, there's probably a headline on my phone right now. Oh, there's not. The one time there's not, but
Yeah, but that's it though, right? Like we're not... I don't think we're evolved to be able to cope with all these different things coming from different sides of the world, and it is an information overload. It's really easy to get overwhelmed. So I think that's where mindfulness is really important.
Right.
And it's not a new practice. It's been going around for, thousands and thousands of years in different forms.
Yeah.
Straight through for history, people have been taking time out and reflecting. It's not nothing new. It's just that now it's been cultivated in these, like I said, apps and things like that. It's almost commodified to a certain extent.
So at what point did mindfulness come away from, if it has done so, maybe it hasn't, but maybe when I was a kid and growing up through my teens and 20s, you thought about meditation as sort of an Eastern philosophy, mysticism. You thought of it as some kooky religion from, parts of the sub-Asian area or Asia in general, whereas now it feels like this kind of meditation is very much mainstream, for want of a better word, and it doesn't have any affiliation with that sort of Eastern mysticism at all.
It's funny because when you say it doesn't have any affiliation, people like, the Headspace app, right? Or have you...
Know of it.
Yeah, so it's I mean, that's really the app that's brought it to the masses. And if you look online on YouTube, they've got these fantastic animation videos of describing what meditation is and what mindfulness is and all this sort of. But Andy Puddicombe, who's the founder of Headspace, he developed this app in the first place. He actually lived in Tibet as a monk for 15 years.
Right.
So he's sort of taken that Eastern philosophy and made it accessible and, I guess, more tangible for the populations in the Western world. I think it's a really good thing to do for what he's done, because I've been practicing it for, like I said, thousands of years.
So does that mean still sort of it has its base, has its roots in those philosophies, almost repackaged for a modern Western civilization?
Yeah, I think
and
so.
then delivered through technology.
Yeah, essentially. And I know that there's some people that think that, and I've spoke to a few people like this, that they look at mindfulness from a religious point of view, and some people think that now it's been sort of bastardized, coming into and being used for the masses. It feels less genuine, or that you're taking certain parts of mindfulness, and that's not the right thing to do. But I think if it works for you, and if you can take little lessons from these mindfulness things, then I think it's a really good thing to do and just use them. Yeah. So
that was a part of the PhD as well.
Yeah.
As I said, that hasn't necessarily come across from what I've read of you publicly. It's been more the motivation and the behavioural change. But I guess mindfulness and behavioural change probably can go hand in hand, because when you become introspective and you look within, so to speak, that can help evoke a change on some levels.
That's exactly it. So previously I looked at lots of stuff about motivation. That was my I did my master's in motivation for exercise back in the UK. And it's all about if your motivation is based on your own values, your core values, then you're more likely to stick at something. So, I mean...
So to pause there, what does that mean?
So, if you've got certain values that for example, health and family are really big values for a lot of people.
Yep.
So if you're being physically active or doing any health behaviour because you want to look after your family or be more connected to your family, you're more likely to stick at exercise, for example, as opposed to if you're doing it for ego-based reasons.
Right.
So, summer season, everyone wants to, well, not everyone.
Bikini bodies.
Yeah, exactly. It's the worst type of motivation. Really, really powerful, actually, at first. But the drop-off is quite quick. And even if you manage to stick at things like exercise based on this body image thing, because we've been told what to look like.
Yeah.
It's a society thing. It's a body image, the ideal image and all that sort of stuff. Basically, we've been told how we should look, and we're trying to strive for that. Even if you do manage to stick at exercise in the long term, it's going to have an impact on your psychological well-being as well, because you're always comparing yourself to somebody else. You're never going to attain that perfect body, especially when you look at airbrushed models in fitness magazines and Instagram and all that sort of stuff. It's unattainable. So when I talk about, call it autonomous motivation, which is motivation that comes from within. Pure autonomous motivation is enjoyment, right? So if you're intrinsically motivated, that you're doing something because you purely enjoy it. Like, I'm playing football today, and I play every week, and it's because I actually enjoy it. It's not because I'm going to get any of the benefits of it, apart from really enjoying playing football. But that's not always realistic for lots of people, It's not like everyone finds exercise enjoyable. So if you don't find it enjoyable, we've at least got to find the value in it. So that's when it comes down to, like I said, family values, health values, all these sorts of things. So if your motivation's based on these, it means that you're more likely to stick at things in the long term.
So people who want to lose weight for their wedding day, for example, won't be as successful as parents who want to lose weight to play with their children.
I think
to get fitter, to be more active for their kids. Like there's it's not as a vain kind of motivation. It's it's internally more.
Yeah, it's intrinsic. Well, autonomous is the I guess the key phrase, because I think it's not that people aren't going to be successful if they come with those ideas, because a lot of people that I work with, that's usually the main reason they want to come in. And this is there's a whole industry based on this, right? Health clubs really feed into this idea of having a beach body. I know you look at adverts for lots of health clubs, and it's all about these sort of young mid-20s people that are just bronzed and got six packs and they're jumping around doing all this sort of stuff. And that's playing on that image, you know, trying to get people into wanting to exercise, to look in that certain way. But a lot of the people that I work with do tend to come in with that idea.
Like as in, I want a summer body.
Yeah.
Right.
But then the idea is to try and go around the back door and try and introduce this idea of values and stuff and try and get them to have values as their main motivation.
So when you say people you work with, tell us your typical situation. Someone will find you on your Facebook page or something.
Yep.
And why will they come to you?
Usually it's because they've done they've joined a gym in the past, or they've started these exercise programs and hasn't been very successful. There's a really good statistic about how, it's resolution time, right? For
New Year's,
yeah. And that's the reason that I was in the ODT about the workshops that I was doing in Dunedin. So I did one in December about how to set up your resolutions, and then January about how to stick to them. But one of the things is that within 6 months, 50% of people who start these programs of exercise and healthy living will drop off. And actually, usually, it's as the year goes on, that figure obviously decreases quite a lot in terms of how many people are actually sticking to it. So usually the people that I work with are people that have tried this again and again and again. You know, the sort of classic yo-yo dieters, yo-yo exercisers.
I think you can see by visually looking, you're probably talking to the person.
But that's exactly it. There's a certain set of, psychological skills that I can work with people to try and get them to have the skills to actually stick to stuff and the motivation as well. So there's a few parts to that sort of puzzle. The one is getting the motivation in place in the first place, but then also trying to develop. I try and work with mindfulness as much as possible, try and develop those skills.
Yep.
But also, goal setting is a huge thing. Social support. So getting all these things in place that will actually keep people going in the long term, rather than just sort of, right, we'll do this for 3 months. Yeah, we'll lose weight, but then we're going to put it back on because there's that sort of rebound effect afterwards. Yeah. So that's a typical client, is someone that's, frustrated with previous attempts at trying to stick at things in the long term.
Does that mean your client is typically a bit older, like 30s, 40s, 50s rather than 20s?
It's funny because this is something, and this is a new business for me, right? This is a new venture. Like, I've never actually... when I was doing the PhD research, I took a group of people and I worked with those, and it was a huge range of people from like 21, I think was the youngest, to 65 was the oldest. But now, when you're looking at how to develop a business, it's what's your target market. So this is something that, it's all a learning curve for me as well. It's going from academia to the business world. But what does your audience look like? What does your customer look like? And that is a really key thing. So I think it is, the more I look at it, the more it is going to be like towards from maybe 35 upwards.
Yeah, totally. Because if you're talking about people who have been through the ringer, and listen, I'm someone who was at intermediate school and was at Weight Watchers. Yeah. So, I've been there, I've done that. I've got memories of weight when I was a child. One of my, to this day, it sticks in my head. Obviously, I've talked to people and had counselling with that kind of stuff, but it sticks in my head. And it's funny what sticks there. I had a family. I've been stayed at a family's, like a extended family's house when my parents were overseas, and lovely people, love them to bits, love all the children. I don't want to identify who they are, obviously, but the mother, they're all twigs, know, like twigs. Yeah, and I can't remember how it came up, but it was said in front of me, which means I think it was said in front of some people, making a joke that two of her sons could fit into one of my pair of shorts. Right. And she made some kind of comment or joke about it and thought it was hilarious and didn't do it with malice and stuff. But that still sticks with me today. Yeah. And we're talking 35 years later, 30 to 35 years later sort of thing. So that's been my life. But what I'm saying is I wouldn't have been your client at 20, because at 20 I was a big rugby playing dude and played basketball 6 days a week and all that kind of stuff. And it wasn't until I'd kind of done all these things, then my 30s come along, and then the kids come along, and then there's less time, and now my back's packed it in because of my sport, and my knees are starting to go, and I'm like, crumbs, what can I do? So when you say 35 up, I think that's exactly right, because they're the guys like me who have either been through a life of it, I think I've been through a life of it, or have certainly, they've been your typical kid, but when they've hit their 20s, they've packed on the freshman 15, as they say, and then they've tried all sorts of things and it hasn't worked, and that's not going to be until they're 35, 40 before they see it.
I think that's really true. So you get the young ones, It's like that program. Do you watch the young ones?
I was showing my kids on YouTube that just the other day.
Oh, really?
I was showing them the first episode, which I can still do almost verbatim.
Oh, really?
The first 10 minutes.
Fantastic.
Love the young ones. Devastated when Rick Mayall died.
Yeah.
Because he was a young guy, and also liked Adrian Edmondson, liked the ridiculous Bottom series afterwards and all that kind of stuff.
Superb.
Yes,
series.
young ones fan from way back. Had books, had posters, had everything.
Yeah.
In fact, I've still got it at home actually. I've got when I was at school, we used to have like cardboard folders that were about yay big for your art folders.
Yeah.
And then a friend of mine drew Vivian.
I was going to say, did you ever have the Vivian hair?
Gun to his head. No, I never had the Vivian hair. So I had, huge fan. Anyway.
Yeah, young ones. So, I guess the young ones are more resilient, right? Like you said, if they get injured, they can bounce back very quickly.
Yeah.
They've got this more energy, less responsibilities. So it's much easier for them to and more socially connected a lot of the time as well. I think that's one of the things as you get older. I remember reading this study, this was about 10 years ago, but how the older you get, friendships tend to drop off, the social support side. So even that side, the opportunities to be physically active and be more engaged with life drop off as you get older. So I think that's where the key sort of age that comes in, like you said, 35. I think it's a good age to focus on, and this is something that I'm just learning now, really.
Well, that happened. I discovered this. I had people who know me and who follow this, my blog and stuff know the story, so I won't need to go into it. But I had a marriage breakdown 2 or 3 years ago, and I'd only been living in Dunedin for a year, 18 months. Can't remember the exact timeline. And I realised, because I work from home, run my own business.
Yeah.
Whereas my then wife was out, working in jobs. I had literally no one around me.
Yeah.
And I kind of was like, oh my goodness, I don't know anyone in Dunedin. I don't have a support group. I don't have friends down here. But what I found out, a very, very, very dear friend of mine where this all happened came down from Auckland to Dunedin to hang out with me for a bit. And he said to me, when you hit your 40s, it happens to everybody. He goes, if any one of me or my friends had this kind of instance, because you have family and you have your partner and you have your kids, and then you're doing in the weekends kids stuff, and then you got to be home early on Friday because the kids have got sport the next morning. And he said everyone in their 40s, all the men in their 40s have lost the majority of their friends.
Yeah.
And anyone who went through that kind of, because I was thinking, woe is me, I've got no one, but he was basically saying anyone who goes through this in their 40s, a kind of breakup or something, realises how much family has become their be-all and end-all, and how their support groups outside that are really limited.
It's strange though, right? I mean, I wonder how long that's been going on in terms of generations? Because when we talk about motivation, the theory that I work from, it's something called self-determination theory, and it's how you develop this autonomous motivation, like I was saying before. And basically they talk about psychological needs or psychological nutrients that you need. And one of the key ones is relatedness. So this idea of reciprocal support from the community. Yeah. And, we know that social support's really important, but where did we get that from? Is the family becomes the primary source of social support then? But then it becomes it's difficult because obviously you hold a certain role in the family, right?
Yeah.
Because you're the person that's the breadwinner or looking after this sort of family, as opposed to being one of a larger group that are all on a sort of level. So I don't know, it's a strange one. I never really thought about it in too much detail, but I think that whole idea of relatedness is really important. But as you get older, friendship tends to shrink a lot, and more responsibilities come into play, and it's hard, man. It's difficult.
Do you think that with this day and age, I know for me personally, I think, we always blame social media, but kind of it is. But with it being, you know, our parents and so forth would have gone, oh, I haven't seen such and such in a while. I wonder what they're up to. They give them a call. They go, hey, we should have a beer. Whereas now, if we go, oh, I wonder what such and such is, we jump on Facebook and be like, oh, okay, that's what they're up to. Cool.
Yeah,
and we don't have any further connection.
So
with
you
them,
don't need to connect with
we
someone
don't
to know
need
what they're doing.
And so therefore, because of that, we're kind of passively keeping tabs on our friends, and because we're passively, we don't need to actively keep tabs. And then one day something happens, and we need them to be actively in our lives, and they aren't.
Yeah.
I also wonder. I sometimes think we said, and I'd be interested to get your take on this because you're from the UK, and the UK has that real corner pub culture. But the other thing is when you think you have community around you. So I was involved with the church, let's say late 90s through early 2000s, maybe a bit beyond, around that time. Let's say 95 to 2003 sort of thing. And every weekend I was with these people, lovely people, so much fun, you know, had a greater deal of fun. It was movies and dancing and pubs and, you know, going away, all that kind of stuff. I left that church and I went to another church, and every single one of those people, bar about one or two, disappeared from my life overnight.
Really?
Yeah. Now don't get me wrong, don't get it twisted. I'm not blaming them for that because this is a mutual thing. But all of a sudden, the things I was doing every week with people, and this is not an uncommon occurrence, you know, you go to a workplace and it's always Friday afternoon drinks, and then you're playing poker on a Saturday night, and you leave that workplace, gone. I wonder but I'm wondering also, because I was thinking about community as Jace was just talking, I was thinking about in the UK, you know, every night you go down the pub. You have a beer and you've got all these people around you. Is that community? Like, is that church group or that work group community? Or is it much like social media, a bit false, because as soon as you're not in that environment, all gone, no support.
I guess those sorts of places provide a platform to you to find these people that you really connect with, right? So I guess there's different levels of friendship. And you find these people in these opportunities, like going to the pub, you might find someone that actually you really do connect with. And then regardless of where you go in life, I mean, I remember working in a call centre when I finished university, not the most conducive place to making friends, but I found one guy there and it was a horrendous job, like literally trying to sell credit cards to grannies. It was just horrible.
Yikes.
But, you know, you don't get any time to socialise, but we used to go to the pub with a guy there just to talk about how bad the day was. And this guy, Andy, he's one of my best mates. He's still back in the UK, but just that really short period, because we just connected, like we went outside of the sort of that working place, that work environment, but that friendship's carried on because we connected with him. Do you know? So it's, but in terms of
that speaks a little bit to me of authenticity as well.
Yeah,
so you
true.
can have a circle of people, and shout outs to Andy back in the UK if he's watching or listening. But maybe amongst that group of acquaintances, or maybe, I don't know, I'm not going to use the word friends, not that they weren't friends, but situational friends.
Yep.
Again, not in a bad way, but because of the situation. If you can find one or two, that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, it's true. I think, and you remind me of the Flight of the Conchords skit with Murray, and he's got the graph with the friends. Have you seen that before?
I've seen all of them, but I can't recall that.
It's when, and I'm trying to think of it now, but it's got a graph, and it goes, it's Brett and, what's his name?
Brett and Jermaine.
God, I don't know, I forget that. Brett and Jermaine, and he's got this graph where like they go up through acquaintances to friends, and then I think Brett does something bad. There it is. So they go from, I don't know what F stands for, but they go up here, and then at some point they drop down again because he does something bad.
Let me see if I can find the actual video, maybe.
Yeah.
But I mean, short story. The short of it is that friends are really important. You got to work to find some genuine ones, right? It's yeah. But that all feeds into the motivation for something. If you've got a, like here, for example, Pigeonish. Big shout out to Pigeonish because it's just an amazing place to be.
I'd like to push
This might be it, I think.
Friendship realm.
What's the friendship realm?
Well, you've heard of a realm, yeah?
Yes.
Well, this is like a friendship one. A group of people basically getting together, calling each other friends. Look at this.
How long is it? We can watch it. Hope we won't get pulled
Okay.
off YouTube for
What's
this.
this?
It's a friendship graph.
The video itself
Okay,
is
if you have a look
illegal,
along
so-
here on the x-axis, this represents time passing. And on the y-axis here, this is the different levels of
This
friends.
is such a good show.
Okay? Starting up here with friends, workmates, down to colleagues,
Right.
underneath that strangers,
Yeah.
which is pretty much everyone I've noticed, and then enemies. So basically, you guys are here, workmates. And what I want is get you up here, friends and above. That's where Jim is.
Who's Jim?
Well, Jim's my best friend.
We've never heard of Jim.
Well, if you guys were my friends, you'd know who my other friend was. Jim.
All right, I think it gives us the gist.
Yeah.
Geniuses.
So I don't know where we go with that then, but that's what I mean. It's just trying to find these genuine friendships. And
So I use the word authenticity. So I guess what I'm doing is I'm talking this out as we're talking. The examples I gave of, you're at work or you're at the pub or you're at a church, like is the example I gave. Maybe the thing is, even if you do hang out with those people every night, like the pub is a good example in the UK, finding a friend and like a genuine, authentic friend in that would be a good result, as opposed to thinking these are all my people.
Yeah.
Like, well, no, these are people at the same place at the same time, but maybe that's not authentic relationships on a more than level one sort of situation.
yeah, exactly. There's a difference between someone that you're friends with just because you've spent time with them versus someone that you're friends with because you share the same values, for example.
Yeah.
Values is always a big thing with friendships as well, right? The people that you tend to connect with more are the people that you share values with. But also I find the strongest friendships I've got are when you share some core values, but then you have other values that are a little bit different. Because then it creates, it's not conflict, but it's something that you can actually work through and discuss, It creates those deeper friendships if you don't agree on certain things, for example. I think it creates these more genuine friendships.
So if you've got things not in an aggressive way, but butt heads on sort of thing, you're saying the core values are the same.
Yeah.
So you would be similar to this person, but there's a few things that you get a bit argy-bargy about at times. You disagree on that. Because I guess it's like if you just agreed on everything all the time, that sounds quite boring. That doesn't sound like you go very deep. Whereas if you've got some things to spark off, to either influence each other on or to accept that you can have people in your circle who have different perspectives.
Yeah.
When you're saying this, I just think about the ridiculous US political system. How basically if you seem to be Democrat or Republican, you can't mix.
Oh, yeah, for sure, yeah.
So
I heard a podcast about that the other day and how people who identify as Democrats just refuse to even listen to Republicans' rationale behind their thinking, for example. So it's this out-group thing that automatically develops. But if you've got some sort of, I guess it's conflict resolution skills essentially, like if you know how to have a discussion with someone and actually listen to their perspective, and I think that's a really important form of bonding. It's a really cool bonding way.
We seem to be in a society today, though, that it's not okay to disagree. Like, how you get to an end of a conversation, okay, well, we'll just agree to disagree.
Yeah.
That we don't seem to be living in that world anymore. I mean, I have to say, it might sound quite immature of me, but I love watching clips on YouTube where people are losing it or going off the deep end, or social justice warriors going crazy on for whatever, and screaming at people, and their way is the only way, and calling people Nazis, or right wing people calling people leftist loons, that kind of stuff. There doesn't seem to be any way to either come to a compromise, or at the very worst in this day and age, come to a place where we agree to disagree.
Yeah.
And I remember several years ago, I wrote a blog post when I had not supported a union at the ports of Auckland because I didn't like how they were doing a strike.
Right.
And I got attacked by a bunch of far left bloggers talking about being a mouthpiece of the right and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
To which I then wrote a response blog where I said, well, actually, in this instance, it was the NZEI, the teachers union. I supported them. So I supported this union in this point because I agreed with their position. I'm not supporting this union this time because I don't. We have to say that logic dictates we can never be 100% right. I mean, no one on the face of the planet would say I'm always right.
Yeah. Well.
Which means sometimes you're wrong. Which means who knows if you're not wrong this time. Yeah. And if we can't admit that sometimes we're wrong and we always think we're right, we're in a society now where we can't move to this place where we agree to disagree. I mean, I know I'm not always right. I mean, right most of the time, but not always right. So I can't. It's very difficult if you can receive that. It then becomes very difficult to go, fuck you, you're wrong, and you've got, because this might be the time I'm wrong.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. It's having the sort of, I guess, the balls to say that I'm wrong sometimes. You've got to admit to these sorts of things, and and to move on, that's what you have to do. I think it's really important. There's lots of pride these days, and especially and group affiliation things. Like I said, it's really hard. A really good example of this at the moment in Dunedin is the whole cyclists versus drivers. Like there are these two out groups, and I'm going back to physical activity now, but these two out groups that have been formed, and it's ridiculous. Like I've lived in Bangkok, right, for a couple of years, and I cycled to work like 10Ks a day. I felt safer cycling in Bangkok than I do here sometimes.
Really?
It's ridiculous. Like that, and I'm not jumping on a soapbox here about cyclists. You know, we're not the answer. I just like to get from place to place, and because I like physical activity, I just find it the most convenient way. It's cheaper, etc., etc. But yeah, there's a lack of awareness sometimes when you're cycling here, and obviously all the cycleways and all that sort of stuff now. And when you jump on, for example, the Dunedin News, are you on that on the Facebook? Yeah. The comments on that, it's an interesting sort of, I guess, from a social research point of view, seeing these comments that drivers versus cyclists, and there's these two out groups that there's no way that they can meet and compromise. It's just like this person's wrong because he's a driver, like he's got this identity as a driver, therefore he's wrong according to the cyclist, and vice versa. So it's funny, we get stuck in these identities, and we find it really hard to compromise a lot of the times. Yeah.
And now you've got to throw Lime scooters in there as well. So now you've got drivers, cyclists, and Lime scooter riders.
Yeah. Have you been on a Lime scooter yet?
I had a play the other day with the kids. You know, we went for like 500 metres up the road and back again. So, yeah.
I mean, they're good. I jumped on one, and it was novelty, really. And I had a smile on my face. I was down there with my partner, Molly, and we were just going down the road. But I think, yeah, I mean, they've got to find a way. And it's the same with e-bikes. I do research with e-bikes at the moment as well. I've got a talk next week on e-bikes and presenting at a conference and people's experiences of using e-bikes in Dunedin, for example. But I think it's these sorts of things are really good because they make active transport more accessible to lots of people. I mean, e-bikes are a really good example. They're really expensive. But actually, I had one participant of mine in a focus group actually did a cost-benefit analysis and worked out that owning an e-bike was cheaper in the long run than owning a car or using public transport, for example. But they make active transport more accessible to. I've had an 80-year-old participant who just motors down the road, and that's great because otherwise she'd be stuck in a house
On an e-bike?
Yeah.
I think the good thing about e-bike, can you Google, Jace, can you Google Mate, M-A-T-E, e-bike? I found this one the other day. It's pretty sick.
Oh, yeah?
I think that's what it's called, a Mate e-bike. It's got big fat-ass tires on it. Have a look. The thing about e-bikes which attract me is I've got no cartilage in my knees from rugby and basketball. You know, it just has happened. Look at this fat thing.
Wow.
It's fantastic. And I think the thing about e-bikes, and as you're saying, the older person, push play, don't have any sound, but just has some play in the background. It's dope as this thing.
Want to work.
And I think the good thing about it is the assisted ride. You know, it's just cool. I like it a lot.
Well, and like I said, it had.
So you still get the exercise, you still get the motion, but you've got the assist.
Well, you can choose, can't you, as well? You can choose to be challenged a little bit.
Thing.
They're from Denmark as well, right? I think
Look at
said.
Beautiful. I'm not sure where it's from.
Yeah, Denmark have got it going on in terms of active transport because their cities, Copenhagen, for example, set up to have these cycle lanes and drivers. I don't know if it's Copenhagen, but Amsterdam for sure. Bikes get right of way, which would not go down well in Dunedin. I know that for a fact.
They would lose them.
No, you know what?
Yeah,
Parts of Europe, and I remember doing this when I used to do talkback on ZB. I did a bunch of research, and they have like a diminishing responsibility from the size of your vehicle. So in other words, if you're in a 20-wheel truck, the car has the right of way.
Yeah.
If you're in a motorbike, the motorbike has the right of way over the car. If you're in a bike, you basically have the right of way over everybody.
Yeah.
Because basically they go, which I think is kind of smart actually, they go, if there's an accident here, who needs to be protected?
Yeah.
And it's the littlest one.
Yeah.
Which is why
At the same time, though, like if you obviously they have to have the right frame of mind, but in New Zealand, you can imagine that what would happen is the cyclists would go, "I've got right of way, so therefore you, Mr. Truck, that's 40 tons, have to stop for me," and they go, "Oh." and they pull out in front of a truck that takes 100 meters to stop, but they get hit. And
Yeah.
they go, well, that was your fault.
Well, I
'cause you
think
should have stopped.
there is a cultural idea here,
absolutely.
and I think that what I've heard when I did this research, and this is 10 years ago, is that in places that have those kinds of rules, that the 20-wheel trucks, they slow down if they're coming up to bikes.
Yeah.
And because they know that if anything happens, they're in the blame. Like how if you hit the back of a car, the one behind always is to blame.
Yeah, yeah.
And they know, and cars give them a really wide berth because they know if you hit that cyclist, it's massive trouble.
Yeah, it's funny though that I think cyclists and I drive a car as well. It's not like I'm a pure cyclist. I just happen to use it on a regular basis. But the sense of ownership that people have over roads, like car owners think that they own the roads, cyclists think that no, they own the roads, and it's just this weird sort of ownership.
It's a very, very Kiwi thing. I think that she's reflected in a lot of our road rage stats and stuff.
Right.
Kiwis are very, very the bubble you have around you as a person when you're walking down the street extends to a car and a bike, so your bubble becomes infinitely bigger when you get into a bike.
Well, the thing about driving a car as well, you're already at level 8. Like of stress and everything. Because even
really
people
true.
who drive comfortably, and like I love driving. I used to think my dream job, and when I say used to be, I'm not talking about as a kid, but I used to love the idea of riding the ride-on lawnmowers that cut like the parks and stuff, just because I love to drive and I love to do that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But if you think about being in a car, you're already at 8.
Yeah.
Because, I know when I'm driving, I'm looking 200 meters ahead. I'm looking, I'm searching, I'm scanning. So I'm already heightened massively.
Yeah.
So if something goes, and I'm not a road rage person, but I can imagine for some people, if something goes dunk and it just tweaks into that 9 or 10, bang.
Yeah.
Whereas on a bike, maybe you're more relaxed and you're more chilled. You're not so worried about it, maybe. But certainly, you're driving a 2-ton death trap. You're already heightened to 7 or 8 out of 10, so it doesn't take much.
Yeah,
I love seeing the videos of cyclists who get cut off coming along and just smacking the wing mirror off a car or things like that. There's some just great road rage videos out there. I use it as my therapy.
By great, do you mean they're interesting as opposed to you approve of them?
No, I just like that. I like it when it goes in both directions. Sometimes it's fun.
And there are good drivers and good cyclists, and there are bad drivers and bad cyclists.
Yeah, sure.
It's just having a bit of respect for everyone who's on the road. And
It just also, this is not like we're not sermonizing here, but I just go chill.
yeah,
It's like if someone does something technically illegal and they cut me off or they drive slow, it's like just.
Yeah.
I like those ones where you get an aggressive driver behind you and they blast around you and they take off and you just kind of casually pull up to them at the next lights and just look at them and
They haven't got
they
any
blast
further.
off and you just pull up to them at the next lights. It's like,
I've been both sides of that.
where were we? What did we start talking about? Riding bikes.
we were talking about in groups and out groups.
Yeah, so
and-
we're talking about tribes, aren't we?
Yeah,
The
yeah.
car tribe versus the bike tribe.
Yeah, that's it. And just tribes in general, like trying to find that right tribe in terms of and how it influences motivation. I think that's.
And I think tribes always put you in that I'm always right. No matter what happens when you're watching the rugby as a All Black, the Australian player is always in the wrong.
Oh yeah,
no matter what,
it's a blink.
They're
of view of
always
things.
in the wrong.
Yeah, and that's a social bias, right? It's a cognitive bias because you see what you want to see. And that's just like a phenomenon that's been going for, forever. It's what it's evolved with us, but it's this idea that we only pay attention to the things that fulfill our belief system. So, and that's essentially what things, that makes sense.
So how does one study motivation? That's a really interesting idea. The reason I ask you as well is because I feel like on some levels the least motivated person in the world. Had this conversation with people recently, it was well before knowing you were going to come on, but I find that if there's things that I'm passionate about, this is an example, this podcast.
Yep.
When I was up till 1 a.m. emailing future guests and that kind of stuff. And, Tiki Tane, if you're listening, we want you in a few weeks' time. Nora Jones, if you're listening. But there's other things that I'm completely unmotivated about. Now, I've had a hell of a year. My mum passed away a few months ago. I've been through a rough stage with wrapping up a marriage, which actually is it's the actual wrapping up is fine, but there's been some incredibly stressful moments and stuff. I've had to find access to extra serotonin and that kind of stuff, and Even though I've always been a big dude, I've probably put on another 15 kilos sort of thing. And it's been a hell of a time. But I, at the moment, feel like I can't get motivated to get back to a healthy lifestyle. Is it fair that there's stages in the life where you just kind of go, oh, just can't do this right now? Or is that dangerous in a motivated kind of way that might turn into 10 years?
Well, I think there are certain things that sap energy, right? As you know, like the cognitive resources and mental energy. And when you have big things happen in your life, then it's normal to feel like there's not much energy to do new things or to change behaviours and stuff, because you're trying to focus on the things or work through the things that have just gone on in your life. So I think that's a really important thing to acknowledge. In terms of whether that's a long-term thing, I guess that comes down to sometimes it's just a flick of a switch, I think. And we've got in fact, I'm doing this podcast next week about immersion versus sort of drip changes. So the drip is where you just make these small changes on a daily basis, for example.
Yeah,
the frog in the pot type thing.
Yeah, exactly. So creating like small habits. And I mean, at the moment I'm working on doing like a routine in the morning that sets me up for the day. So it just means doing like, I'll do a couple of exercises and I'll do a 10-minute meditation, but creating these really small changes of the day that will make a difference.
Jordan Peterson talks about make your bed.
Yeah,
it's a military
thing. Yeah. And that's it's funny because I was working as a personal trainer last year. This is after PhD, and I just needed something to get my teeth into for a while. And one of my clients said to me, the best habit you can do is make your bed in the morning. Hadn't even thought about it before, and now it's something that really stuck to me. So my client taught me that aspect of making your bed, and it just that sort of kickstarts the day if you've done that one small good thing.
I think it's also, I remember there was like I don't know if it was a TED talk even, but it was kind of one of those motivational things where it was, you're saying, if you make your bed in the morning, one, get you moving, get you making things, you've accomplished something for the day. And even if you don't have any success that day, you've accomplished that. And then if you have one hell of a day and nothing goes right, at least you come home to a well-made bed.
Yeah, exactly.
My one of those little things is I've stopped biting my nails.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. That doesn't sound like it's anything, but
How did you do that? I could
I've been a nail biter forever.
Yeah.
And I often notice that I feel my mental health is better when I'm not biting my nails. I don't know what it is. I don't know what the connection is. I don't
or is
know
it
whether
the other way around?
Yeah, it's causation. Yeah.
I don't know whether it's just because I have to stop myself doing this, and I still find myself kind of doing this occasionally, but I don't bite them. And so for the past couple of months, maybe not even that past month, I've been cutting my nails rather than biting my nails. And I'm so bad, I would bite my nails and then it would go too deep and I'd rip it out and it would bleed. That kind of nail biter.
Yeah. I've done that before as well, man. I bite my nails as well, and it's a terrible habit to do. But
yeah, so my make your bed in the morning has been stop biting your nails.
Yeah.
And that's about a month. I'm a month on the wagon. Is it on the wagon? No, the nail biting wagon.
On the wagon.
It's funny, isn't it? Because you talk about these habits and there's the habit that you're trying to stop. So stopping bad habits, which is very different to trying to start a new habit. So for example, starting a new habit of exercising on a daily basis or moving on a daily basis compared to stop smoking or stop drinking. There's one way you're trying to refrain from doing something, and there's one way you're trying to activate yourself to do something. So it's like that sort of, doing something versus stopping. They're two very different things to do.
Yeah, that's interesting. No, let me take that in. So you're saying stopping something is very different from doing something.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true actually for me, because stopping something I found a lot easier than doing. Does that mean, is that anything? Is that a particular kind of personality or something?
Not that I know of. Maybe it's some research for the future. I don't know.
When you're talking about exercise, but me personally, I'm just going to jump in with my personal stuff at the moment.
I don't know. This is going to turn into a counselling session.
Okay, counselling. No, I'm just saying. Like about a month ago, I hopped on the scale post Christmas, and I saw a number on those scales that was the biggest number I'd seen ever, and I was like, no. It was a nice round number, which was nice too. It was a nice round number, it was with a 0 on the end, and I thought, no, that is the heaviest I ever want to be. And so I'm not motivated enough to exercise, but I figured the very least I can do is I can stop doing something relatively easily, except biting my nails. And so I was like, right, I'm just going to eat less.
Yeah.
Because eating less is literally doing less, and I can do less quite easily. So I just stopped. I started counting calories, which I swore I'd never do. and I've been doing that for a month now, and it's it's tough when you want to eat ice cream in the middle of the night on a hot day, but it's doing nothing. So do you think doing nothing? Well, I'm doing less effectively.
I reckon stopping something feels easier than starting something, because starting something could involve a huge change to your whole life.
Yeah.
So like starting, let's say we're talking about movement and exercise, starting a bike ride a day might actually need you to change 10 other things in your day.
Yeah.
Whereas stopping doing something just involves stopping one thing.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know the research, or I'm interested in your thoughts, but it feels to me like, so this is, well, I won't do something biting my teeth, my thing that's stupid, but yeah, to introduce something will have potentially a flow-on effect. Stopping something feels like it's quite absolute.
Yeah, I think what I liked about Jason's was the fact that it was one small change, right? So I think that's one of when people try and make changes, they often try and take on these wholesale changes. They're not just going to start exercising, they're also going to eat better, and they're going to sleep better, and then it just becomes this huge, it's a task trying to change it. We've only got a limited amount of willpower in a day. So if we're trying to assign all this willpower to lots of different things and different habits, it's a really hard thing to do.
Yeah, that's why I was conscious. It was a conscious decision when I was like, right, I want to lose weight, and I was like, I know there's 1,000 things I can do.
Yeah.
I can start exercising. I can go for a daily walk. I can do this. I can do that. But I was like, you know what? The easiest thing to do is I just go, right. At the moment, I'm eating 2 of these things. I'll eat 1 of those things, and I'll lose weight, and I have. And it was a really, I think for me personally, the motivation was every time I was like go to the pantry and would be looking and go, can I have a snack? I would just say to myself that number. I'd just say that number in my head.
Right. So you had a visualization it
it was almost, I guess almost a mindfulness in a way, I guess. But I was just saying, I'd say that number to myself, and I'd be like, no.
It's that, and I think there's a tendency to talk about mindful eating. I had a friend who did research in mindful eating, and the fact that we eat stuff when we're bored or eat stuff when we're not really thinking. And often we don't even give our body a chance to digest the stuff before we keep consuming. So sometimes we can just overeat just by default almost. It's an interesting one. I think there's some research there as well, I think, in terms of mindful eating stuff.
It was interesting, though, just going back a little bit with what Pat was saying with biting his nails, because I bite my nails as well, and I looked into it a while back, and I think this is possibly the reason. It might be the reason Pat was doing it too, and with that anxiety, is that our caveman brain, when back in the cave, if we were eating, we were safe. The caveman would only eat when he was safe. And so because of that, our brain is programmed that if you're eating, you're safe. And so therefore, if you're anxious and you're eating something, how much danger can you be? So therefore, biting your nails is kind of the same as eating. And so if you're eating, then you'll help, it kind of reduces your anxiety levels, because your brain's like, oh, I'm eating, I must be safe.
It's interesting. It's also interesting what you said about how much willpower we've got. I feel the same about resilience. Like I'm better today than I was 3 months ago, but I kind of lost all my resilience. I was going through a stage where the stress levels were through the roof, and for various things, including my mum passing, and I didn't have any resilience. So if anything came into my life, it completely knocked me.
Yeah.
I could live and I could function, and I used to describe it like water tanks. We had a batch in Northland for a while, family when I say we, and had a water tank, and the water tank goes down, 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 but there's like an overflow. But then when the overflow goes down, there ain't nothing left.
Yeah.
And resilience to me kind of feels like that. And so it took me time to fill the overflow tank before I could even start filling the main tank back up again. And I feel like now at the moment my main tank is filling back up, but it's still not full.
Yeah.
So I can take it maybe a hit or two now, but at one stage there I literally couldn't take a hit. If I took a hit, like I remember standing at the sink. I remember standing at the sink doing the dishes and just stopping in the middle and going, I can't finish these.
Right.
I just can't. I have to stop. I'm doing the dishes. I'm at home by myself. There's no one there. Like I think the kids were with their mum, and I was doing the dishes, and I just went, I just can't finish these, and just putting them down and leaving them alone. I'm not like that now, but I remember those moments. And when you don't have resilience, and you don't have, whether you want to call resilience willpower, or whether they're two sides of a coin or sisters in a family or something, Yeah, I think that can affect all sorts of stuff to do, especially motivation and behavioural change as well.
Yeah, I think for sure you're talking about resilience, and it's something that I've been looking at more and more actually the last few months, looking at papers around resilience. But it's a really hard thing to come back to, and it's something that comes back with time. But there's also, certain things that you can do to build up resilience as well, which is what I'm getting more interested in at the moment. But yeah, it all comes from the same tank. Like you said, it's really hard to make change in your life if you're just struggling to even finish the dishes, right? Like it's the last thing on your mind, and it's not, and it's important to normalize this as well, because it's when people are in that situation, sometimes they can think like there's something wrong with me, but actually it's just part of human nature that sometimes we have these peaks and troughs, and sometimes haven't got the energy or the resilience to be able to do these things. Just have some self-compassion, and I think it's really important to normalize these experiences and just know, classic mindfulness phrase, this too shall pass, and it will pass with time. Yeah. Just be able to get through it. And then again, that's where sometimes you need some social support to come and pull you up. That's really important. Again, community. Yeah,
totally. And I've got some real special people in my life now, so it's very different today than it was a year ago. But yes, it's interesting. And I'm also intrigued in this because I feel like I've spent the last 6 years, this isn't a counselling session, by the way. The thing about what we do here in the Department of Conversation is we just talk openly and honestly.
Yeah.
And what I've decided for me is I have to be all in.
Yeah.
And if I'm not all in, there's no point. Yeah. So that's why I tell my stories.
No, I completely understand.
So for the past 6 years, I've been on a journey, and I started when I got, when I've realised and connected with some addiction issues. And it then flowed into when I got diagnosed as dyslexic, which was when I was 40.
Oh, really? Yeah.
So, that was when I got diagnosed as dyslexic. And that then went through a personal journey of discovery for me. And then that kind of culminated a couple of years ago when my then wife came out as a lesbian. And then I guess you could now put in that as when my mum died. So this has been the 6-year journey for me. And I felt like during that journey, all I've been able to do is, well, not so much the first part of it, because I was okay, but I was figuring shit out. But certainly the last couple of years, I've just been hanging on. And so now I'm at the stage where I feel like, things like physical health and stuff is becoming more important to me. I feel more motivated about it. But because I'm the classic example of the yo-yo, the person who was 12 years old with all the 47-year-old women literally at Weight Watchers. Yeah. I'm like, what do you do? Where do you go? So I know you've got a football game to get to in about a half hour, and we don't want to block that for you. I know it's flowing, isn't it?
I'm all right. I'm across town.
So tell me something. I don't care if you speak to me or if you speak to someone like me or just in theory, right? I know you've delivered lectures and stuff on how to be motivated, how to keep motivated. Give us some tips or some tools. Like for anyone watching, don't necessarily think just about me, but I've given you a rundown of my situation. Like what, if you were to synopsize and, I don't care how long you take, 3 to 10 minutes to 20 minutes, you do whatever you want. But what people need to do or think about, I don't know, do you do like a 10 steps to keep your thing? Or you know what I mean? Like what is give us some tools or some tips or something that you can give us, those of us who are thinking, right, how do we move into the next stage of our life? How do we get motivated? How do we stay motivated? Yeah. So the floor is yours. I could go away and just leave it to you if you want, but go for it. Tell us some stuff.
One of the first things to do is to work out what you actually want to change and where you are. So I mean, I'm specialised in physical activity, right? So I'll talk to that, I guess, because I look at other health behaviours, but I think I'm going to stick to what I really know, which is exercise and physical activity. So one of the first things is that to monitor what you're doing. So I love to give people, do you know the recommendations for physical activity? How much you should be doing a week?
Well, I mean, what I've heard is it's 30 minutes a day.
Yeah, so 150 minutes a week.
Right.
And I think there's this...
Can we just pause? I'm not going to try and interrupt you all the time, but describe physical activity.
Physical activity...
Because 30 minutes a day, what does that mean?
Physical activity is any activity that's going to increase your energy expenditure. So,
I'm using an app to track my fitness at the moment. I entered mowing the lawns the other day, and I was like, I put it in because it was quite long. It took me an hour. I put it in an hour, and I was staggered at the amount of calories it said I burned. I burned like 500 calories just mowing the lawns.
So, would it be easy to say that what raises your normal heart rate? Is there a way to tangibly measure that?
Yeah, so heart rate, there's certain descriptions to it. So you get moderate. This is all moderate physical activity. Yep. You can do vigorous, which, I'm playing football soon, and that's going to be vigorous activity. So you got to do 75 minutes of vigorous or 150 minutes of moderate. Moderate is anything where your sort of heart rate's going up. You might start to sweat, but you're not sweating buckets. So it's something like brisk walking, for example, is moderate. A really good thing. One of my previous clients, she used to be in a circus.
Oh, wow.
And she was a juggler. And there's a Harvard University have got this great compendium of all these physical activities that you can do. And they rate things in terms of, I don't want to go into too much detail, but by moderate and vigorous, essentially. How many minutes, which is how many metabolic units you're burning per. So if we're sitting down here now, it's 1, like it's at rest. If we stand up and start walking, we might be burning twice as many calories. So that's 2. If we start running real quick, you might be burning 8 times as many calories. That's 8. So that's 8 mets. Basically, moderate is like around 6 mets. Turns out that juggling is a moderate physical activity.
Oh, cool.
So you could do 150 minutes of juggling.
I can juggle.
And just stand, as long as you're standing up juggling, like you're getting your core workout, and it's actually, I've never.
Wow.
Yeah.
I like juggling.
Then go for it, man. I reckon juggle. So that's one of the things I love to do. You talk about physical activities. Actually, the first thing I do is give people a challenge. 150 minutes in the first week of finding a moderate physical activity they can do, and just fill up that 150 minutes with something they really enjoy. Because if they can tap into something that they enjoy doing, then that's pretty much the job done. If you can get someone to enjoy do 150 minutes of juggling, then go for it.
I think that's one of my big problems at the moment, because in my younger days, when I was a young one, basketball.
Yeah.
I played basketball 2, 3, 4 hours a day. And actually doing exercise or something you enjoy is the best way to do it. Whereas my knees are now shot, my back's pretty bad.
Yeah.
It feels like I can't do those things that I once did for fun. So it has to be sort of just something for exercise. And I think that's something that a lot of people kind of go, ugh. Like my sister, for example, she goes to the gym, but she loves it. She's got a community there. She's got friends there. And it really helps. Her serotonin levels go through the roof sort of thing. I am I like lifting heavy weights. That's what I've always done. But now because of my broken body, I can't lift heavy weights. So it's like I don't know what that thing is, that fun thing. For me, I don't know what that fun thing is. So I'm now thinking, I mowed the lawns for an hour. I almost think the opposite of what you're saying, which probably isn't smart, which is I'd rather find things I have to do and be able to tick it off than find things I want to do to be able to not notice it.
Yeah, and like I said, the enjoyment is obviously, that's the ideal scenario, right? That's the sort of gold standard of motivation if you can find something you enjoy.
I need an e-bike.
Yeah, get an e-bike.
Yeah,
Honestly,
right into town.
That was one of the themes that came up all the time, was that it's bringing joy back to people's lives. There's, like I said, this 80-year-old woman who's flying down North Road, absolutely buzzing because she's on an e-bike. And anyway, that's another thing. So yeah, that's the ideal. I think I like to get people curious about their movement again, because I think there's been this huge dissociation. We evolved to move, right? Like there's a natural reward system in movement that now we get sort of conditioned from like 4 years old to sit down and concentrate at school. And it just this curiosity around movement just gets beaten, not physically, out of us. And I think that's what I try and do, is get people back to being curious about movement. What does it feel like? And ask them to take notes on their thoughts leading up to movement, and what happened during movement, what did you enjoy about it, and how do you feel afterwards. So I think that's really important. It's that mindfulness aspect as well. Try and think about it and be curious about movement again. But like you said, it's not always that possible to find these activities that you do enjoy. So again, talking about the core values, one of the first things I do is I've got a big list of potential values that you could have, and get them to choose 5 of those. So I'm trying to think of different examples on there now. There's things like compassion's one, family, community, all these sort of, hundreds of values that you could choose from. Get them to choose 5 of those that really speak to them, as individuals, because it's amazing how the variety. You think that lots of people have shared values, but the amount of variety that you have, that people have in their own value systems, is just amazing. And create a sort of mission statement. So you put verbs in front of them. So act with compassion, find community, those sorts of things. And then try and connect that. What we do is work to connect. It is a counselling session, essentially. It's physical activity counselling. So you're working to connect these values to the reasons for being physically active. And I think that's a really important thing, because as soon as you make those connections with values, it seems like you're working. Every time you do physical activity, you're working towards something that's bigger than you, or something that's really important to you as a person. So values work is what I really, really work towards. But it's amazing how much people don't schedule as well. I think scheduling is really important, and planning the week. When you're trying to develop new habits, habits are fantastic, but they take a little bit of effort to develop in the first place. So just scheduling and planning the week ahead is really important. So really geeky thing to do. I used to do on a Sunday night. I'd have a meeting with self. I actually put this in my Google Calendar.
Did you say meeting with self?
Yeah, with me. A meeting with myself.
Did you have like 2 cups of coffee that you put out? One for you and one for self?
I didn't actually. I should have done that.
Next time.
So I'd just sit there on a Sunday night, 8 p.m. every week, and I'd just have a list of things that I've done the previous week, things that have gone right, things that have gone wrong, which again, I think is really important. We're in life, right? So there's trial and error involved in it all the time. I think it's really important to recognise and normalise things that we fail at as much as we do in terms of success. And then think about the things that I need to do for the rest of the week. So that'll be things like planning food and try and think of if I wanted to do physical activity, make sure I've got all the equipment in place and know when I'm going to do that and be realistic with that. So that's another thing I do is the scheduling side of things. And then goal setting, which, it's almost become a bit of a cliche in a lot of domains now, but it's it's the biggest predictor of success in physical activity. What goals have you got? The SMART goal setting stuff. Have you heard that before?
Just explain it.
So whenever you've got a goal, it should be SMART, so specific. So just saying that you want to be healthy isn't really a goal, but saying that you're going to run or walk 30 minutes a day, every other day is very specific, right?
So is that why it's SMART?
Yeah, that's the S of SMART.
Right.
So
specific.
It's an acronym, specific.
Gotcha.
Measurable. So if you're not measuring this movement towards a goal, then it's not really, how will you know that you've attained it? So
I'm gonna walk for 30 minutes, measurable.
Yeah. So Jason, for example, is measuring his physical activity in calories. So that's a really measurable thing to do. It's really good. Accountability.
Weighing myself every day and counting every time I go down by a little bit.
Exactly.
I just don't count the times it goes up.
Accountability. Can you be accountable to an app, or do you think you need people as well?
Well, I prefer people.
Okay.
Certain people work in different ways.
Yep.
There's some good apps out there now. There's one where that gamifies accountability, so you can actually assign a referee. It's called Stick. It's actually developed by people at Harvard, which is a complete coincidence. But Stick with 2 Ks, STICKK, and they have this thing where you can actually gamble on yourself as well, so you can put money on the line.
Wow.
If that's the only source of motivation for you, then it's not a great source of motivation.
And if you lose, it goes to a charity or something?
Yeah, exactly.
I wonder if the TAB would do that. I know they'll pretty much take cabs and give you 1,000 to 1 if
That's
I can
a
make
really
it under
good
100.
point. There's a collaboration here somewhere. But accountability, so you can assign referees, so you can get a friend to sign up, and they'll say, have you done this thing before? And they'll also send you automated emails as well to say, can you submit a report on have you finished this? One of mine, I've actually used this app this year, was to climb something every week.
Oh.
I want to climb. I want to get back into rock climbing. I used to do it a long time ago. And I'll get this report sent every week saying, have you climbed something this week? I say, yeah, tick. And it goes back and I feel good. So accountability is really good. Realistic, it talks about taking on huge changes. It's making sure that our goals are within reach. If they're not within reach, then confidence takes a knock. So we call them sort of Goldilocks goals.
Right. Things
that aren't too much, too high, or too far out of reach. Also, if they're too easy, then we get over them real quickly as well. And then the last one is timed. So having some sort of time frame, including these goals. So obviously sometimes time doesn't really apply because it can be a continuous thing. But even a time to review the goals and work out how they're doing, because evaluating and reevaluating is really important as well.
So does that mean the measurable one probably shouldn't be time if you've got a specific time one? Like, so if you're going to walk, so rather than maybe 30 minutes, you're walking for 5Ks.
Yeah, it could be.
And then the time, okay.
Yeah. But for a lot of the time, like the time
Where was that picture, Jace? Bring that picture up with the smart thing on.
smart goals.
Yeah, there we go.
See,
specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, time-based.
That's a slightly different one there, the one that I use. But the attainable one I've changed to accountability because I think I've brought that into bringing that sense of social support and accountability. I think is really important. Relevant, I guess, here would be personal values, but this is a slightly different one to one that I use.
Yeah.
But then you can also add an E and R on the end of that. So you make them SMART, which is great, but E and R is evaluate and reevaluate. So you're coming back to the goals on a regular basis. Just because you make goals, it doesn't mean they're going to be set for life.
Yeah.
So that's where I try and review them every month, for example, go back and say, are these goals working for me? Are they out of reach? And just being a bit self-compassionate and making sure that I'm at least moving towards something.
All right. So just if people are listening and or watching and they want to do it again, just go through it again. S is
specific,
M is
measurable,
A,
accountable,
R,
realistic,
T,
timed.
I was thinking, how do I spell smart? And then evaluate and reevaluate. And that wouldn't be necessarily weekly. That might be monthly or quarterly or...
Yeah, quarterly.
Well, I guess you could do whatever you want, couldn't you?
Yeah. As long as you... That's part of the time thing as well. It's setting time for reviews. I think that's really important. And these are really practical tools because you can do this, you can do it quite easily and you can... As long as you can probably get worksheets offline. I've got some worksheets that I use with people that I've developed. And I think it's really important. And it's good to talk these things through somebody else as well because, you could be trying to set a goal that's really unrealistic without really thinking about it. But then if you've got someone who knows you a little bit, like, are you actually going to be able to do that?
Yeah.
But that's also embracing failure a little bit and knowing that it's a trial and error. So it's not going to be perfect the first time.
Yeah, I'm doing that. I've got two goals. I've got a goal that I know I can obtain if I work at it, and I've got a goal I'd love to obtain, but I'm not going to beat myself up if I don't.
Yeah, exactly. So you got these short-term, immediate goals. You got sort of medium-term goals, and you got these long-term goals, which can be really idealistic. But if you shoot for the moon, land amongst the stars, and all that sort of stuff, I think it's really important.
Yeah, basically, one goal is like to not go into numbers, but one goal is basically be as light as I was sort of about 10 years ago, I think it was, when I was like, and the other one is to be lightest I've been as an adult, basically, which I know is achievable, but it's just a long-term goal.
Yeah. And these things get harder as well as you get older because our metabolism slows down as well, right? So that's another important thing. There's lots of research now on how because the metabolism slows down, especially when you hit 30 and above, you've got to work harder to attain these goals than you would. And we talked about this at 20s. It's much easier for someone to drop a few pounds at 20 than it is when you get older. So it's one of those life challenges. Nothing's completely easy in life. It's just one of those things. But that's hopefully where I come in, is actually try and help people to attain these goals and give them some accountability as well. Because
so as I'm hearing you talk, I'm kind of thinking you sound like you're setting yourself up to sort of be a personal coach, a motivator, but also with the PhD behind you with some real strategies and tools to help people get there. Yeah.
A big sort of bugbear of mine is I didn't mean to start a PhD. It just happened. I don't like particularly the gap between research and actually seeing people change as a benefit of that research. So I think now I'm trying to move into the practitioner role because you can come up with this great idea in research and then it might take 6 months to get the planning started because you've got other things to do. Take another 6 months to get a grant application written at best. And then the grant comes in another year later. And then 5 years later, you've got these projects and you've got all this data and you've worked with these people. But the best thing about the practitioner stuff that I'm doing now is like I can see people change right there and then. And that's really powerful to me. And that's one of my core values, is to actually see instant change in people. So even just sitting there and talking to someone in one session, like you can see the confidence come back a bit. Obviously, it's always work in progress. It's never finished. But it's that idea that I can actually make changes to a community or make changes to an individual straight away, as opposed to waiting for grant applications to come through, and that's really important for me.
Well, I guess you are Dunedin based.
Yeah.
Do you have an ambition to stretch wider? Like do you need to be with a person face to face to be a client? Can you do things over phone, over the internet?
Yeah, I think that's something that I'm trying to work on at the moment. Like I said, I'm moving from academia to business, and it's all a learning curve, and that's what I'm working on. In the last couple of weeks, I've been looking at developing video content and things like that. But at the moment, it's all one-to-one face to face, and using Skype and Zoom and things like that, which is it's great now because I can reach out to more people.
Yep.
But I think it's funny when you're trying to describe what I am. That's something I've been really struggling to do. What I don't know, you can talk about life coaches and stuff like this, but you can do a life coach course in over the course of a weekend nowadays.
Yeah,
you pay like a few grand.
Well, you're
for
a doctor. That I think that helps with you. I mean, the other thing I do is marketing and advertising.
Yeah,
and I can see that you're different from a life coach. That you've got the qualifications behind you. I mean, you've written your own thesis to get your own doctorate to talk about.
Yeah,
to give you your own research to back up what you're doing as well, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, there's credibility there.
Yeah.
But it's always difficult to come up with a title of something, and I've gone through about 12 different titles, I think, in terms of what I actually do. But that's something I need to develop.
But where you do it is a group called the Mensana?
Yeah.
Is that Mensana?
Mensana movement. Do you know Mensana Incorpore Sano? You heard that before?
So how is that related to Mensa? Mensa is the high IQ. Is
that's Latin,
same
isn't
root
it?
word?
So it's for like healthy mind, healthy body or something?
Yeah, exactly. So Mensa is mind.
Right, okay.
Mensana Incorpore Sano is a healthy mind in a healthy body, like Jason said. So the idea is that it's behaviour change, but done in a good way, as opposed to those yo-yo dieting things. I'm also big into positive psychology, so how the benefits of physical activity for psychological health as well as physical health. So doing it in a way that actually is fulfilling, rather than just sort of, like I said, that if your reasons for exercise are ego based, you end up with this sort of anxiety issues or poor psychological well-being. So the idea is Mensana movement is it's movement because it's obviously physical movement, but getting to positive psychology through physical movement as well and behaviour change. So yeah, it's trying to encompass a lot of things, and I guess that's going to be honed as I go along. It's
pretty cool. So people can get in touch with you, or find out more about you. Scroll that up a bit, Jace, because they've got you've got links, you've got little tips and tools on your page and stuff as well.
Yeah.
So people can just go there and find out more about you and find out more about. I guess people can just like and subscribe to there as well, which also means if they are outside of Dunedin or New Zealand, then they can still they can see your writings and they can still get tips from there and stuff as well.
You can also read the meaning of the name in Latin beforehand, so you can sound smart.
I was going to say that, but I thought
you were going to call me out.
No, I just thought that I'd leave that till the podcast was finished, and I was going to go, "You dick, you just read that before," but I let you get away with it.
Absolutely.
Matt Jenkins, Dr. Matt Jenkins. Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, cheers.
Well, I guess we're part of the same building, so it wasn't very far for you to come.
And talk about community. Yeah, Petri Dish has been amazing for me, at least. It's such a cool little place to come, and I love this place. Yeah. Yep,
and they've been good for us as well. I mean, for people who don't know, we always put them up at the start of the podcast. They're a shared office space in Dunedin, and I guess let's plug them as well. If you're looking for a space in Dunedin, or if you're outside of Dunedin and you're travelling to Dunedin, they do hot desks and stuff as well. Like if you're in town for a few days and you're looking for a space to work out of, just Google Petri Dish Dunedin, and you will be welcomed on board, as people have been for the last few years.
Yeah, fantastic.
So off to football now.
Yeah, I've got a cycle across town, playing down at the stadium. So.
12 minutes.
Is that futsal or what is it?
Futsal.
Yep.
Can I just ask this question?
Yeah.
What the hell is futsal? I see it advertised everywhere. Is that like small ball soccer, indoor soccer? I thought that was.
Yeah, essentially it's indoor soccer.
Where do you do it at the stadium then? Is there an indoor gym there?
Unipol, the university gym. So
I thought you were going to be on the turf. No. You and Ben Smith were out there.
I played on the turf last night. I did play last night, so I still played 9-a-side. But futsal is essentially, a normal ball is a size 5.
Yeah.
And then a futsal is a size 4, so it's slightly smaller.
And it's in a gym.
Yeah.
Smaller goal.
Yep, smaller goal, and it bounces less as well. It's a different game. It's pretty quick.
Right.
I've got to try and keep up with the 20-year-olds now.
And how many minutes of movement is that going to give you for your week?
It'll be an hour and a half today.
And you're riding there.
I'm riding there.
All right.
Yeah.
Matt, thanks for coming in.
Yeah, cheers.
Find out more about Matt and what he does at the Mensana movement. And what's next week, Jace? Oh, David Clark.
Health Minister.
Yeah.
Hey, on topic. There we go.
David Clark.
Oh, wow.
We've had medicinal marijuana last week.
Yeah.
Mindfulness and motivational health this week. And next week we'll bash David Clark with all of us. We won't bash you, David Clark. We won't. I'm joking.
I'll be keen to hear that one.
He'll cancel. So no, we won't do that. We won't do that. Well, he won't cancel. He's lovely. His people will cancel.
Yeah.
So next week is David Clark. Thank you, mate.
Yeah, cheers, Pat. Cheers, Jace.